Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 4 of the Book of Hope. I'm Kate Tucker, and if you're just now joining us for the first time, we are writing the Book of Hope together. So that means that we are daily journaling, and we're writing down our daily 5 gratitudes. And then we are also exploring what our weekly reason to hope is. And so I'm checking in with you again on another Monday check-in just to see how it's going. What are you finding is giving you hope? And what have you explored in the past week talking about the language of hope? What kind of words are we choosing? What are we learning together? So I'm going to share a little bit of what I'm experiencing. And one thing is, as I started to pay attention to the quality of my words and the ways I was kind of framing my situation, I realized that oftentimes my fears end up being actually transformable, if that's a word, into reasons to hope. So, for instance, if you do an exercise and you ask yourself to come up with 5 things that you are afraid of or fearful for, and then 5 things that you're hopeful for, oftentimes those 5 things are the same. They're actually directly related. And if we just flip them, then we very quickly find ourselves forming prayers. And so that's what I want to talk about this week. And I have put some reflections up at rootandvinenews.com. You can also find us at Root and Vine News on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But first of all, I want to talk with you. I want to hear from you in the comments about ways in which you're learning that your fears can be transformed into reasons to hope by choosing language that ends up naturally forming prayers. So this week, let's explore prayer as a reason to hope. I was doing some research, and apparently there's actually an expert, like a world's leading expert on gratitude. Like, what a job. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And he's a psychologist, and so he's basically made a living studying what makes people feel grateful and what the effects of gratitude are on the mind and the body. And his name is Robert Emmons, and he's from UC Davis. And what he says is that in many spiritual traditions, prayers of gratitude are considered to be the most powerful form of prayer. Because, he says, through these prayers, people recognize the ultimate source of all they are and all they will ever be. And I love that. I was like, oh, that's so interesting. So it actually is right in line with this Christian theologian and mystic that I love to try and unpack. He's got a lot of dense things to say, but he also said something that you probably heard and a lot of people have kind of paraphrased to be, if the only prayer you say your entire life is thank you, that would be enough. And I mean, I feel like that's where we begin. We begin with this prayer of gratitude, even though right now I'm afraid for some friends who have COVID. I'm afraid for my close loved one who has COVID. There's so much to be fearful of, so much to be, concerned about, so many questions, so much uncertainty. But what we do know is that the Bible has a lot to say about where to take that uncertainty. And it's interesting because a lot of those verses also include the words thanksgiving or giving thanks, like what Paul says in Philippians, do not be anxious about anything. But with everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, all that uncertainty, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So gratitude has the power to bring us peace that surpasses human understanding. So it's actually this sort of healing tool that we can use for sustaining these times of uncertainty and suffering. And then Paul continues, he says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And so I think that's what we're doing in writing our daily 5 and in coming together weekly and sharing our gratitudes and our reasons to hope. We are forming a practice where we focus our attention on what is good and just and honorable and true, on what our true reasons to hope are. So I would love, love, love to hear what you're discovering. You can tweet at Root and Vine News. You can comment in this feed. Thank you so much for being here in this journey with me. We are writing the Book of Hope together, and I'm learning so much already, and I'm just encouraged to be in community with you. So this week, let's ask ourselves, what does our faith teach us about prayer and the sort of prayer of gratitude? And figure out kind of like what prayers of gratitude come to mind for you. Is it something that maybe you know from the liturgy at your church? Is it a hymn? Is it a worship song? Is it a country song? Is it, a poem that you wrote? Is it something as simple as thank you that you say every morning when you wake up? I would love to hear what you're finding to be your form of prayer as we take this practice of gratitude together. So in that, I want to close with a poem that I love by this ancient poet Hafiz. I believe he was a Persian poet from the 13th century, but I'll get back to you on that. So this is called Now is the Time. Now is the time to know that all you do is sacred. Now, why not consider a lasting truce with yourself and God? Now is the time to understand that all your ideas of right and wrong were just a child's training wheels to be laid aside when you finally live with veracity and love. My dear, please tell me, why do you still throw sticks at your heart and God? What is it in that sweet voice inside that incites you to fear? Now is the time for the world to know that every thought and action is sacred. This is the time for you to compute the impossibility that there is anything but grace. Now is the season to know that everything you do is sacred. Thank you all. Have a beautiful, blessed week. I'll see you next Monday at 3. I have a special guest, so stay tuned for that. And let me know how it's going as you write your Book of Hope. Thank you again.